hopefully you've already got started on your card game, but if not, I'm going to walk through a few of the basics. We always start out by doing the layout. After you create your project, you do the layout, you name the controls, you create the click handlers for the different buttons. Last class period, I recorded, it's a video on the class website, how to create your deck of cards. Everything from number 2 on are suggestions for you on what to work on next, because a lot of you are kind of going, I don't know what to do next. I would suggest you create your deck of cards, and from the collections worksheet, question number 4 is a great pattern to use for creating your deck of cards. The next thing I would suggest is get your buttons. You have a higher and lower button. Get those buttons so they just start moving through the deck of cards and displaying the next card. Before you shuffle the cards, displaying the next card is just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 20. But that's a good next step. Just display the card and work on this piece of text where you display card number X of N. So you'd say card number 1 of 20, card number 2 of 20. That's part of the assignment. There's a text block in there where you display that. And the buttons are just changing to the next card. The display current card, last time we talked about this, went through an example where you have a method that will display the current card. And then I would work on the code in the higher and lower button clicks to detect higher and lower. So if I say higher, I'm guessing that the current card I'm on is less than the next card that I'm on. And if I guess lower, I'm guessing that the current card is higher, greater than, the next card. So it's really the only difference between the higher button click and the lower button click is a less than or greater than symbol. And then you need to do display correct or incorrect when they guess. And if they get it correct, you need to add 1 to their score and keep track of the score, displaying the score. And when they get to the end of the deck of cards, you need to stop the game by disabling the buttons and displaying game over. Make sure that I can still see, was their last guess correct or incorrect? Make sure that game over is displayed somewhere else, not in that place. Now, shuffling the deck. Number 5, I recommend that shuffling your deck is the last thing that you do. We're going to go over that now. So if I have a deck of cards, how do you shuffle a deck of cards today? I didn't bring a deck of cards in. How do you shuffle a deck of cards? If you're a little child, you'll take the deck of cards and you'll just fling them around, and then you'll gather them all back up. Most adults and those in Vegas cut the deck in half, and then you kind of fan them back into interleaving them in random ways and put them back together again. So how does a computer shuffle a deck of cards that way? Computer doesn't have hands. Computer doesn't have tangible deck of cards. Gabe says putting them in a random order. So remember my garage example where I have my different cars? If I want to think of the cars as cards and my garage as my deck of cards. If I want to randomly order my cars, what do I do? Gabe, if I was telling you I want to randomize the order of the cars in the garages so I have a pleasant surprise in the morning when I go out and I choose a garage, open it up, and I have my car for the day. How would you shuffle my cars?
equipment.
Uh-huh.
Put it in that garage. And I take the next car, put it in a random garage that's not being used.
So all of them are being used. So I can't very well take Lightning McQueen and come and put it in slot 2 because there's already a car there.
If I were doing it literally,
I'm asking for literally.
I would take them all out and then I put each one in a random.
Okay, so one way of doing it is taking them all out and then just start randomly putting them back into empty garages. So what if I have a very small driveway and my driveway can only accommodate one car being parked at a time, and the other cars can still move out of the garage, but I have one parking slot out of the garage.
I would take a random car out
Uh-huh.
and then I put a random car in its place.
Well, you would take one car out, you put it in the parking stall.
Didn't you say that there's also room to take one more out?
There's room to move them, but not to park them. So then,
And then so let's take Lightning McQueen out.
okay,
And then I pick one of those random 4, let's say it's 3, and I put it in Lightning McQueen's spot.
and then you would put Lightning McQueen in the 3 slot,
Yeah.
or something like that. Okay. Do you see how that would work with cars in a garage and only one parking space? So I have visual aids today. Woohoo! So let's say that these pieces of paper with the numbers on them represent the different cars. And so we said something like, oh, they all moved. Sure. All right. Put papers in all these places. All right, so this is my parking stall. I have one parking stall, but I still have space for moving the cars. So I randomly choose one of the cars, and I move it to the parking stall. And then I randomly choose another car, and I put it in the parking stall that was emptied. So I moved the car in the second slot to the parking stall. And then I took the car in the fourth slot, and I put it in the second slot. And then I can move this car there. Does that kind of make sense? Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Does that kind of make sense? From a computer programming perspective, this is what it means. So let's get a good marker. So how do I randomly choose a slot in a computer world? Random number generator. So I create a random number generator. I'm going to call him R. So I created a random number generator called R. Now I need to choose 2 slots, the beginning slot and the end slot, right? So I need 2 random numbers between 0 and 4. So I need an integer. I'm going to call it A. And I need R dot, is it next or get next? 0, comma 5, right? Because that will give me 0 through 4. And I need another random number doing the same exact thing. R dot next 0, comma 5. Now I need to, now that I've chosen the 2 places, let's say we chose A as 1 and B is 3. Now I want to exchange places. But I can't just go directly from one slot to the other slot because I have to move one out of the way or save it. And I have this parking stall. We're calling him temp. And so I will say I have an integer parking stall called temp. And that equals, in this case, we have I'm going to call our deck of cards just deck. Deck sub A. See how I put A is the random number between 0 and 4. So if it's 1, I'm taking whatever's in slot 1 and I'm putting it down in temp. And then I say, hey, I want deck sub A to receive what's in deck sub B. Sorry, this is so low on the board. So now I'm saying whatever's in deck sub B, which is B is 3, in this slot, I'm saying move it over here, because I already saved what was here. And then the last step is deck B equals temp. The temporary parking stall that we had here, I put that there. These lines of code randomly took two cards and switched places. That's all it did. Is my deck of cards shuffled now? I know I just put them back in order, but is my deck of cards shuffled now? No, I have exchanged 2 cards. That's all I've done. So now we get to use a loop and say, hey, let's repeat this in a loop of some sort. How many times? Sean says as many times as you want.
A lot of times.
Meredith, how many times? 5? Well, we're randomly choosing cards. Alicia, how many? 50? 50, sure. Nina, how many? Huh? I don't know either. There's really no right answer, but I would do it more than a few times. And it's a computer and it's looping. Do 1,000. You could do 1,000,000 if you wanted to. It'll take a little bit longer. But you could do it 100 times or something like that. I'm just going to write 100 here. That number is arbitrary. Because you're really, when you're shuffling a deck of cards, how many times do you do the split it in half and fan them together? You do it a few times, right? But that's dealing with the entire deck of cards when you're doing that. So you might loop a bunch of times. Is this making sense? Do you need more code than that? Is that good enough? No one's asking for more code? I'll leave this up on the whiteboard. The rest of the time is yours. Use your time wisely. Get your deck. I would do all the other, I would save shuffling for the very last. Get through all of the other things that I outlined first. Make sure those are all working. Because once you get all of that working, doing the shuffling, if you remember this, you might want to take a picture of this or write it down. You'll be done. Good to go.